Well, protests, we're going to switch gears now. Protests over the death of Freddie Gray began peaceful, but they soon turned violent yesterday when protesters began smashing police cars and looting stores.
That's all happening in the city of Baltimore. It's about 40 miles from Washington, where last night the White House Correspondents' Dinner took place. And at that very moment, scenes like this are unfolding in downtown Baltimore, right near Camden Yards, the baseball park right on the harbor there. We're glad to be joined by former D.C. homicide detective Rod Wheeler. He was also there. He drove down to see what was happening, and he joins us now to share what he saw. Rod, it's good to see you this morning. We see those pictures. We just showed them on the screen of looters, protesters, angry, violent people jumping on the hoods of police cars, smashing the windows, stealing the contents of the cars. News cameras shot this footage. Where are the police? Why did they allow this?
Well, let me start out by saying, first of all, good morning, guys. The police response, Tucker, was a lot different in Baltimore yesterday than it was in Ferguson, and let me explain to you why. I noticed yesterday when I was in Baltimore that the police took an approach whereby they kind of stayed out of the picture. The other thing I noticed is that there was no indications of any military-type uniforms or equipment, no armored cars, anything like that. The police really stayed back. Now, right before what we see on the screen here began, police did start moving in a little bit, but they were all in regular police uniforms. They didn't even have on helmets at the time. So it was a completely different police response, which I think generated a different response from the crowd.
Well, yeah, but you can't, I mean, you can't have that. That's like chaos. That's third world stuff. You can't have mobs of people smashing police cars. Like, what was the, why wouldn't someone fire a shotgun in the air and say, knock it off?
Yeah, that wouldn't have been the appropriate thing to do, because I think what we have learned, Tucker, over the past few years with these types of demonstrations is that when the police become more aggressive, then we see the crowd tends to become more aggressive. So what we tend to do is let the crowd kind of keep them within a certain area, confined within a certain area, let them do the things that they want to do. But when they really start to become destructive, then we start moving in. Now, there were 2 police cars parked on Howard Street, and that's what we see on the video right now. That's Howard Street. There was 2 police cars parked there, and those are the cars that a couple of the agitators in the crowd started going after. But for the most part, it wasn't that bad.
All right, Rod Wheeler, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you, guys.
Good morning, Rod.
Some other stories we're following now. Breaking overnight, one person is shot outside the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport.
We want to take you to the city of Baltimore now, where there was violence in the streets last night. Protesters pledging to shut down Baltimore in the name of Freddie Gray. He's a suspected drug dealer who died in police custody earlier this month from broken vertebrae. They did make good on their promise. They shut the city down last night.
Well, initially it was a peaceful protest, but it certainly turned violent. Take a look at this video. Unreal. So you see people getting on top of cars. There's a report of one agitator who stole a police hat and stood on top of a car and started causing even more chaos. And all of this was going on, Peter, as the Baltimore Orioles were playing the Boston Red Sox. So 37,000 people nearly, the fans inside, after the 10 innings, were urged to stay inside because of all the violence going on.
You know, they were virtually held hostage as protesters, thousands of them, outside, resorted to the streets, resorted to looting. We've seen images of looting, burning of cars, property destruction, turning over of cars, and eventually the police got it under control. As you know, Freddie Gray was killed under circumstances that are being investigated by the Baltimore authorities and the Department of Justice, died of 3 fractured vertebrae in the neck and a crushed windpipe, and so they're trying to get to the bottom of what happened to him. 6 police officers have been suspended with pay. At the same time, Freddie Gray's sister is asking for people in Baltimore to keep the peace.
Can y'all please stop the violence? Freddie Gray would not want this. Freddie's father and mother does not want no violence. Violence does not get justice.
No, it doesn't. And I think your characterization, Peter, is exactly right. Those 36,000 spectators at Camden Yards in Baltimore were held hostage, as are the rest of us as we watch the bonds of civilization fray, because that's what this is, right? You're watching right now the end of civil order. People smashing police cars in the street and no one doing anything about it. This is not a civil rights act. It's a threat to civilization itself.
And it becomes incomprehensible how it got to that point. Obviously, it got under control, thank God, later and after those events that you're seeing took place. But what was the delay? Was there an effort or an inclination by the Baltimore police to allow the crowd to play out? But up to what point do you allow a crowd like that to play out. When people are killed, when people are maimed or injured.
Up to the point where they commit violence. And that cannot be allowed. You can't allow a mob to commit violence. I'm not defending what the police may or may not have done to Freddie Gray, obviously.
Of course not.
I'm merely saying that violence is scary. It tends to escalate. It can get out of control, and you have to stop it immediately.
Yeah, and even family members like Freddie Gray's sister are urging the public to act in a calm manner and to stop acting like this.
Yeah, very important statement.
We're going to continue following the story,
Yeah.
but right now we have some other stories that are headlines developing overnight now. One